They say laughter is the universal language, that for an instant it can make us forget our sorrows and remind us that we're still human. But what happens when the one who makes us laugh carries deep sadness inside? Today, we'll discover the story of a man who turned pain into art and poverty into visual poetry. The most famous tramp in the world, the genius who created The Little Tramp. The eternal Charles Chaplin. A childhood in the shadows. Charles Spencer Chaplin was born on April 16, 1889, in Walworth, a working-class district in South London. His childhood could have come straight out of a Dickens novel. Both of his parents were stage performers. His mother, Hannah Hill, a singer with a beautiful voice. His father, Charles Chaplin Sr., a comic actor known on the variety circuit. But alcohol, infidelity, and poverty tore that family apart very early on. As a child, Chaplin knew hunger and abandonment. His father disappeared when he was only 3, and his mother fell into severe mental illness. Charlie and his brother, Sidney, spent part of their childhood in orphanages and workhouses for the poor. Those were hard years when misery hung in the London air, but young Charlie found salvation on the stage. At just 5, he mimicked his mother and made people laugh on the streets. By 9, he was acting in small theaters. By 14, he landed his first steady role in a touring company. He was thin, quick, full of energy, and impossible to ignore. The leap to America. In 1910, at only 21, Chaplin traveled to the United States with Fred Karno's comedy troupe. Among the group was another future legend of silent film, Stan Laurel. During a tour in New York, a talent scout spotted Chaplin and brought him to work for Keystone Studios, led by the legendary Max Sennett. There, in 1914, in front of the camera, the character that would change his life was born. The Little Tramp. The small vagabond with the bowler hat, cane, and square mustache, wearing a tight coat and oversized pants. Chaplin later said he invented it on the spot. All I needed was a character with contrast. Elegant clothes, yet worn out, dignity in the midst of misery. And so, the world met that tender, rebellious little man who stumbled, dreamed, and kept walking. The tramp didn't just make people laugh, he moved them. Because in his struggles, we saw our own. From actor to total creator. Chaplin quickly became the highest-paid actor in the world. But he didn't want to just act. He wanted control over everything. The script, the camera, the music, the editing. He moved from Keystone to S&A, then Mutual, First National, and finally founded his own company, United Artists, alongside Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and D.W. Griffith. With that independence came his greatest works. In 1921, he directed The Kid, a masterpiece where the tramp becomes the adoptive father of a poor boy. In 1925 came The Gold Rush, set in the frozen mountains, a tale of hunger and dignity. In 1928, he released The Circus, earning his first honorary Oscar. Audiences adored him. Critics revered him. He was a complete artist, an obsessive perfectionist who could shoot a scene hundreds of times until every gesture had a soul. A genius in changing times. As cinema transitioned to sound, Chaplin resisted. He believed that words would ruin the magic of universal expression. So, even in the age of talkies, he released City Lights, 1931, and Modern Times, 1936, both silent. And both masterpieces, City Lights showed us the tramp in love with a blind flower girl. Modern Times was his fierce critique of industrial society and the dehumanization of labor. Chaplin didn't need dialogue to say it all, just his body, his eyes, and his music. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell to keep exploring the lives of the world's greatest legends, right here on Behind the Character, The Great Dictator, and the Power of a Voice. In 1940, Chaplin finally broke his silence. Amid World War II, he released The Great Dictator, a daring satire where he played 2 roles, a Jewish barber and a dictator who looked a lot like Hitler. It was bold, provocative, and deeply human. And in it, Chaplin spoke for the first time. His final speech, a plea for peace and brotherhood among humankind, remains one of the most powerful moments in cinema history. Many applauded him, but others did not forgive him. The political climate in the U.S. grew increasingly hostile. Chaplin was accused of being a communist, investigated by the FBI, and attacked by the press. His once spotless image began to crumble. Scandals, love, and shadows. Chaplin married 4 times and had 11 children. His love life was as passionate as it was turbulent. His second marriage to Lita Grey caused one of Hollywood's biggest scandals. She was only 16. Later, his relationship with Paulette Goddard was calmer but ended in divorce. In 1943, he married Una O'Neill, daughter of the famous playwright Eugene O'Neill. He was 54, she was 18. The press tore him apart. Yet, against all odds, it was the great love of his life. They had 8 children and stayed together until the end. That same year, an actress named Joan Barry sued him for paternity. Even though tests proved he wasn't the father, the court forced him to pay support. A devastating blow to his reputation, exile, and maturity. In 1952, while traveling to London for the premiere of Limelight, the U.S. government revoked his visa. Tired of persecution, Chaplin decided never to return. He settled with Una and their children on the shores of Lake Geneva in Switzerland, where he would live for the rest of his life. From Europe, he kept creating. In 1957, he released A King in New York, a biting satire of McCarthyism and consumer culture. He was no longer the young Chaplin of old, but his brilliance remained untouched. In 1964, he published his autobiography, My Autobiography, recounting his childhood and struggles with irony and tenderness. And in 1972, after 20 years of exile, he briefly returned to America to receive an honorary Oscar. The audience gave him a 12-minute standing ovation. Time had finally forgiven him. The final act. In 1975, Queen Elizabeth II knighted him as Sir Charles Chaplin. The poor boy from London had become a gentleman of the British Empire. At 88, he was still writing, still dreaming of new films. On Christmas Day, 1977, as the world celebrated, Charles Chaplin passed away in his sleep at his home in Vevey, Switzerland. The man who made millions laugh left the world in silence. Weeks later, his body was stolen from the cemetery by 2 thieves trying to demand ransom. It was soon recovered, and today he rests peacefully beside Una, overlooking the lake. An eternal legacy. Chaplin was far more than a comedian. He was an actor, writer, director, producer, composer, and above all, a poet of cinema. His creation, The Tramp, remains a universal symbol of humanity. The small, poor, dignified man who keeps walking despite life's blows. He won 3 Academy Awards, countless honors, and a timeless place in the history of art. But beyond awards, his greatest legacy was showing us that laughter can also be an act of resistance. Because as he once said, life is wonderful if you're not afraid of it. And so, between light and shadow, the curtain falls on one of the greatest geniuses of the 20th century, the poor child who conquered the world with a smile, the man who turned pain into beauty, the eternal wanderer who never stopped seeking human dignity. Catch you next time as we reveal another life behind the character.